Dear learners, welcome to this session. Today we are going to discuss about primary sources of information. In our last session, we have discussed about categorization of information sources. If you remember, this primary sources is according to the contents. When according to the contents, we are going to categorize sources, then they are of three categories: primary, secondary and tertiary. Today, I, Dr. Archana Shukla from Faculty of Library and Information Science, School of Social Sciences, going to discuss about primary sources of information. After watching this video, you will be able to define various types of information sources, identify primary sources and discuss broadly the content of each type of primary source. Now, coming to the details, what are primary sources? Primary sources are those sources which come first in the publication cycle, means they are the first published sources, means whenever any new information gets generated, they will be published in the primary sources. Primary sources are documents that provide full description of the original research. For example, a primary source would be a journal article where scientists describe their research. We all are familiar with these journal articles. Primary sources, as I just mentioned, they are original in nature because they present the research in them. They present original thinking, report a discovery or share new information with the users of the information. Now, coming to some examples of primary sources. Original documents such as diaries, speeches, manuscripts, letters, interviews, records, eyewitness accounts, autobiographies, they all come under primary sources of information. Similarly, empirical scholarly works such as research articles, clinical reports, case studies, dissertations, they also form part of primary sources of information. In the same way, creative works such as poetry, music, video, photography, they all come under the category of primary sources of information. This way, any new creation or any new product which is reported is known as primary source of information. Now, we will see each type of primary source in detail. The first and the foremost category in primary sources is periodicals. We all know that a periodical is defined as a publication which is published with definite periodicity like weekly, fortnightly, monthly or quarterly with the same title and intended to be brought out indefinitely, means it continues for a long time and it is having a definite frequency. These periodicals are also known by the name of journals. Some people call them journals also, and these journals or periodicals, they contain research articles. These periodicals or journals, they are generally bought out by the learned bodies, private or commercial organizations and sometimes by the government also. In the articles in these periodicals, they are of high quality and they are peer reviewed also. So, not only they provide primary nascent information, but also provide high quality information to the researchers, scientists or users of information. Then comes the reports. Reports also form a very important part of these primary sources of information. These reports may be categorized into three: technical reports, administrative reports and trip reports. Technical reports are research reports which are produced after conducting research on a well defined research area, mostly in the field of science and technology. So, technical reports are considered as research reports. Generally, after a project, researcher present the reports to their organization. Same way, administrative reports are also there. These administrative reports are brought out by ministries, departments, institutions, associations, etc. The most common form of these reports are annual reports. One very important aspect of these reports that they are not available through the normal book trade channel, means they are not published, they are just for internal consumption. They are available within the organization, and if we want to access these reports, we have to go to that organization or institution to get these reports. The third category in the reports is trip reports. Government officials, company executives, businessmen, scholars, scientists and many other person, they visit different part of the world on various missions and purposes. During this visit, they hold talks with their counterparts, signs various agreements, finalize business deals, attend conferences, study markets, go around various establishments, sites, trade fairs and places of their interest, and they also examine machineries and other products and services. On their return, they have to submit a report to their authorities. As we see, this type of reports consist of new information which is gathered during that trip. So, these trip reports also come under the category of primary sources of information. Then comes the FAS scripts. FAS script is a collection of writings published in honor of a learned person. In a FAS script, the biographical sketch of a person, discussion on his or her contributions, personal narratives about the person are included. So, these FAS script, although they are not research related publications, but they are original in nature. That is why they are categorized into the primary sources of information. Sometimes these FAS scripts or the collection of papers via eminent personality, they are collected together and they are published. So, these collections also come under the category of primary sources of information. Then comes the conference documents. We all know that thousands and lakhs of conferences are held every year around the world, and these conference documents are also important sources of information as they often contain nascent ideas. After the conference is over, the conference proceedings are published, which contain the papers presented in the conference along with discussions, minutes of the meeting and resolutions adopted. Conference proceedings contain a number of research papers and are primary sources of information. Sometimes these conference papers, they are published in some of the periodicals also. These conference organizers, they are having some tie up with the periodical publishers, and after the conference is over, they publish the presented papers in a periodical or a journal form. In the field of library and information science, we have ILA, Indian Library Association, ISLIC, DELNET, and international level we are having IFLA. They are organizing these conferences regularly and bringing out their conference proceedings also. So, these conference documents also becomes the part of our primary sources of information as they deal with the first hand or the primary information. Then comes the monograph. Although like FAST-script, they are not research publications, but in many cases monographs are also original in nature. A monograph presents a detailed study on a single subject, class of subject or a person, and is usually accompanied with a bibliography. A monograph portrays an overall picture of the topic and can be used by a specialist, student and even a layman. So, due to their originality, monographs also form the part of our primary sources of information, because they also present the collected and the detailed information, and this monograph information is collected from the primary sources itself. Then comes our official publications. We know that government, ministries, their departments, educational institutions, they are publishing a whole amount of literature. These are called government publications or official publications. They are of many kinds, like annual reports, meeting minutes, then agreement signing, and many other things are there. Even governments are publishing their periodicals also, their budget also. Everything that is available with the government becomes the part of official publications, and these publications, they are also not available through normal book trade. So, it is very difficult to get the government publications, and libraries, they have to take membership or they have to take certain extra efforts to collect this grey literature within their libraries. But these government publications, they are very useful for the researchers, for the scientists, those who are working in the field of social sciences, those who are collecting data related with the population and other government schemes. Then comes the patent. As we know, the word patent means an official right given to a person to make, use or sell a product, process, design, etc., invented by her or him for a fixed number of years. In other words, a patent is a government grant to a patentee on his or her invention, discovery for a stated period of time. It is like an exclusive privilege of using the patented invention. So, an patentee is taking the patent for something new. That is why patents also comes under the category of primary sources of information. These patents are published under the gazette of that government. They are published and available to all the users of information. Then comes the standards. Like patents, standards are also primary sources and very useful sources of information. Standard is known as a document that provides requirements, specifications, guidelines or characteristics that can be used consistently to ensure that materials, products, processes and services are fit for the required purpose. If we want to categorize these standards are of two types: technical/industrial standards and other is physical and scientific standards. These technical standards are related to product, process, material or service. These standards, as we say, are primary sources of information. Physical and scientific standards, they apply to natural phenomena which are accurately determined and are not subject to change with the advancement of knowledge. For example, length, mass, time, temperature, etc. So, technical standards are generally related with products and services, and physical and scientific standards are related with some fundamental kind of knowledge and information. In summary, we can say that a standard is an agreed way of doing something. It could be about making a product, managing a process, delivering a service, or supplying materials. The other type of primary sources of information is trade literature. This trade literature, it appears in a variety of forms such as advertisements, sheets, folders, pamphlets, catalogs, user guides, handbooks, manuals, and house journals also. These trade literature, it also contain primary information about products and processes. Much of this literature is not published in any other form because they are in the form of folders, sheets, brochures, etc. One more thing that is very important characteristic of this trade literature is that they are there for the temporary period of time, means their lifespan is very limited. For example, if we visit trade fairs or other fairs where we are getting these type of brochures, sheets, advertisements for a particular product or a service, and after some time they will launch new product and service and that old material becomes obsolete. So, trade literature does not form the part of a collection, generally the collection of a library, but in case of special libraries, some of the special libraries they are collecting this trade literature also, but not the general libraries. Then comes our thesis and dissertations. The two words, these two words, thesis and dissertations, they are used as synonyms sometimes and sometimes as one, because at places they call it thesis and other places they call it dissertation. A thesis or dissertation is a document usually unpublished that contains details of a research conducted under the guidance of an expert. So, generally this thesis is the compiled work of the researcher which he or she carried out during the last 4 or 5 years. So, this way thesis and dissertations became the part of primary sources of information. These theses and dissertations, they are also not available because they are not published or printed. So, they are available within that organization where these theses and dissertations are submitted. Although due to this digitalization, these are available on the repositories also like Shodhganga. Then comes the project reports. For the completion of master degree programs in many universities and institutions, there is a mandatory requirement because of which a student has to work on a project approved by the authorities concerned. The component of this project report are almost similar to the thesis, and in fact that is why in many cases this project report looks like or called like a mini thesis. They are also submitted to the concerned universities and institutions and they are also unpublished. So, they are available in the concerned institutions only. Then comes the information leaflets. Information leaflets, they also carries information and carries primary information within them. There is an abundance of information leaflets on various topics like information leaflets for parents, kids, young people, patient, etc. For example, you have seen when you visited a dentist and after a surgery or a dental procedure, they have given you a leaflet containing the information about do's and don'ts. So, these type of information leaflets, they are very useful for the concerned users, means if the doctor is given, it is very useful for the patients. If the teachers are giving that information leaflet, it is useful for the parents and their kids. So, these information leaflets also provide primary information to the users. Then comes the preprints. Preprint is a typewritten scientific paper. The manuscript means the paper which is there before publishing of that paper in a journal or a periodical, means that it is yet to be published in a scientific journal. That means the paper is yet to be peer reviewed. As we discussed in the context of the periodicals, periodical articles are peer reviewed, but before that process the original paper, the original manuscript which is submitted by the author is known as preprints. Sometimes due to this open access policy, what they are doing, these publishers, they are uploading the preprints on the open access, not the final periodical articles. Then comes the laboratory notebooks. A researcher has to keep a daily record of his or her laboratory activities, experiments, thoughts, ideas, etc. This may include the details of the experiment he or she has done, such as materials and equipments used in the experiment, duration, result, etc. So, everything that is noted there in the laboratory notebook becomes the important part of primary source of information, because they are containing the first hand information related with any research or experiment. Then comes the diaries. As we all know, some people, they are in the habit of writing diaries on the regular basis. Writers, scholars, many leaders and many other eminent personalities, they maintain diaries. These diaries provide most authentic biographical material and plenty of other information. Normally these diaries are handwritten, and sometimes depending on their importance they are published also. This is true in case of the eminent personalities, where these diaries are later on published in the form of a book. Then comes the memoranda. This memoranda or memo is in short is usually a document that aids our memory by recording events or observations on a topic, which may be used in a business organization. The plural form is either memoranda or memorandums. There are various types of memoranda or memorandum, such as memorandum of agreement, means mutual agreement between the two parties or the two companies. Then memorandum of association, it is like memorandum of association between the two countries or the two partners. And then memorandum of understanding means MOU signed by the two parties. So, the information that is contained in these memorandums are very useful, and that is kind of a primary information that is not available elsewhere. Then the minutes of the meeting. Actually, in a official setup, we are having meetings regularly. The discussions done in the meeting, the minutes are prepared, and the agenda of the meeting, members present in the meeting, deliberations that took place and decisions taken in the meeting are all recorded in a document, and this document is called as the minutes of the meeting. But these minutes of the meeting, as I already told you, like other primary sources of information, they are not published, they are just typed and submitted to the authorities, and they are for internal consumption only, not for the external audience. But sometimes they provides very important information for the decision makers, for the committees, for the commissions to decide the policy of the organization or the institution. Then internal research reports. Often companies, institutions and organizations, they conduct research to survey the market, their consumer behavior, sale of a particular product, etc. This document is for internal use only, and hence called internal research report. Usually it is not made public, but this also contains information, and based upon this information the product and services of the organization will be designed to satisfy the customer of the organization. Then the correspondence. We do correspondence in many forms like letters in the earlier days, and now we are so much dependent on emails. Apart from having their literary value, many of the letters have got not only biographical but historical significance also. Many libraries in India also, they are collecting letters of eminent personalities like National Library of India, Nehru Museum Library. They are having a rich collection of letters by eminent personalities, and these letters are sometimes published in the form of books also. So, these letters, these correspondence, they are having the first hand information. That is why they are categorized under the primary sources of information. Then comes the official files. These official files, they are the record of the office. In every office one can find a collection of files that have been accumulated over the years. In certain offices the collection is huge. If you classify these files, you will notice that they are broadly belong to personnel, capital items like buildings, machineries and their products and services, maintenance and repair, stationery, etc. So, if you want in-depth information, detailed information about the organization, official files or the official records are the sources of primary information to get that type of information. Then comes the information cards. A card containing information is called an information card, like a postcard containing a letter, an invitation card to attend a marriage or a meeting or a party, a report card from the teacher of a child, a menu card of a restaurant. All of these are information cards. These cards may be handwritten or printed like a brochure, like a leaflet, and they contain important primary information in them. Then comes the medical records. They also form the primary sources of information. These medical records comprises of prescriptions, pathological reports, X-ray report, ultrasonographic reports, MRI reports, surgical reports, test reports, etc. All these carry valuable information using which the doctors diagnose various diseases inside the body of the patient. So, these medical records, they are very helpful for the medical professional, not only to diagnose diseases, but also to do various type of research in their concerned field of medicine. Then audio and video tapes. Audio and video tapes may contain lectures by eminent professors, scientists, authors, politicians and others. Often debates in legislative bodies, cross examinations of the criminals are also audio video taped as they authenticate the statement of a person. So, these audio video tools are also used to provide new information, latest information, primary information to the users. Now comes the computer programs. A computer program is a series of coded software instructions to control the operation of a computer program. Every day numerous programs are written either for a new job to be executed by a computer or new version of an old program. These programs are the property of companies who have produced them and even sometimes the single users also. Usually it is for their exclusive use. As such, there is particularly no bibliographical control of these computer programs, but they are new, they are first time designed, That is why they come under the category of primary sources of information. So, today we discussed about various type of primary sources of information, starting from periodical, patents, standards, thesis, dissertation, medical records to computer programs. All of these are having their own value. So, you are requested to again go through these primary sources of information and just know about these primary sources of information in depth. Thank you.